The city hummed with life as the neon lights flickered against the quiet Austin streets. It was one of those rare nights when Elon Musk wasn't surrounded by engineers, investors, or flashing cameras. Dressed simply in jeans and a t-shirt, he stepped out of a small cafe, a steaming cup of coffee in hand. He had come here for a brief escape, to think, to breathe, to be just another face in the crowd. But fate had a different plan. Just a few feet away, slumped against the brick wall of a convenience store, sat a man wrapped in layers of old tattered clothing. His face was weathered, his hands rough from years of hardship. But it wasn't the exhaustion in his eyes or the cardboard sign beside him that caught Musk's attention. It was the shirt, the unmistakable Tesla logo, faded and frayed, stretched across his chest. Elon froze mid-step. A homeless man, wearing his company's brand. The irony hit him like a freight train. In that moment, the billionaire and the beggar were connected by a single thread of cloth, one that carried a story Musk had to hear. For a moment, Elon just stood there, his grip tightening around the coffee cup. He had seen his company's logo everywhere, on cars, billboards, even on rockets. But never like this. His mind raced with questions. Did this man buy that shirt once? Back when he had a home, a job, a future? Or was it a hand-me-down, a forgotten relic passed between strangers on the streets? The man shifted slightly, adjusting his makeshift blanket. He must have sensed someone staring because his tired eyes slowly lifted, meeting Musk's gaze. There was no recognition, no flicker of surprise, just the weary indifference of someone who had stopped expecting kindness. Musk took a step closer. "Hey," he said, his voice casual but firm. "I like your shirt." The man let out a dry chuckle, tugging at the faded fabric. "Yeah, me too. Used to work for them before life happened." Elon's brows lifted. That wasn't the answer he had expected. He had assumed the shirt was just another piece of discarded clothing. But this was something different. A former Tesla worker? 100 more questions surfaced in his mind, but one thing was certain. He couldn't just walk away. Elon crouched down, his eyes narrowing with curiosity. "You work for Tesla?" he asked, his tone careful, measured. The man, his name, he said, was Mark Davis, nodded, rubbing his hands together for warmth. "Yeah, 5 years ago I was an engineer at the Fremont plant. Worked on software updates for the autopilot system," he said, a hint of pride creeping into his otherwise tired voice. "I loved it. Hell, I used to tell people I had the best job in the world." Musk was stunned. He studied the man more closely, taking in the rough beard, the tired eyes, the weight of hardship carved into his features. This was no ordinary passerby. This man had helped build the very future Tesla was chasing. "So, what happened?" Musk finally asked. Mark sighed, his fingers tracing the frayed hem of his shirt. "Life happened," he muttered. "My mom got sick. Bills stacked up. I tried to juggle it all. Work, hospital visits, keeping things afloat. But I started slipping, missing deadlines. Next thing I knew, I was out." His voice wavered. "After she passed, I just lost my way." Silence hung between them, thick with unspoken pain. Musk had met brilliant minds from all walks of life, but rarely had he seen someone fall this far. And yet, beneath the exhaustion, something still burned in Mark's eyes, a trace of the engineer he once was. The question now was simple. Was it too late to bring him back? Elon leaned back on his heels, studying Mark carefully. He had met thousands of engineers in his career, some brilliant, some forgettable. But there was something about this man, something unfinished. "You worked on the autopilot system?" Musk asked, his voice steady but probing. "Which part?" Mark exhaled, rubbing his forehead. "Firmware calibration, specifically sensor fusion for obstacle detection," he said, his words automatic, like muscle memory kicking in. He glanced up. "Why?" Musk didn't answer immediately. Instead, he reached into his pocket, pulled out his phone, and typed something quickly. Then he looked up. "How fast can you get to Tesla HQ?" Mark blinked. He thought he had misheard. "What?" "Come by tomorrow," Musk said, slipping his phone back into his jacket. "Let's see if you still have it." Mark let out a shaky laugh, half in disbelief, half in sheer exhaustion. You serious? Musk nodded, his expression unreadable. I don't do jokes, he said simply. For the first time in years, hope flickered in Mark's chest. He had nothing left to lose. And yet, here was the chance of a lifetime staring him in the face. His voice was hoarse when he finally spoke. I'll be there. The sun had barely risen when Mark stood outside Tesla's headquarters, staring up at the massive glass doors. His hands trembled, not from the cold, but from the sheer weight of what lay ahead. For the first time in years, he wasn't just surviving. He was here, standing on the edge of something he never thought he'd have again, a second chance. As he stepped inside, the hum of innovation surrounded him. Engineers rushed through the halls, discussions about battery efficiency and AI algorithms filling the air. It was overwhelming yet strangely familiar. And then, as if on cue, Elon Musk appeared, his pace brisk, his mind clearly racing 1,000 miles a second. You actually showed up, Musk said, a hint of approval in his tone. Mark swallowed hard. Would have been stupid not to. Musk led him through the sleek, futuristic offices, finally stopping at a workstation. A senior engineer stood waiting, arms crossed. This guy used to be one of us, Musk told him. Let's see if he still is. Mark sat at the computer, his fingers hesitating over the keyboard. Could he still do this? His doubts melted away as he dove into the code, scanning, adjusting, fixing. His instincts kicked in, as natural as breathing. Within minutes, he had corrected an issue that had stumped others for days. Musk watched in silence, then exchanged a glance with the engineer. Not bad, he muttered. Not bad at all. Mark exhaled, realizing he wasn't done yet. Mark sat back, his heart pounding as the last line of code executed flawlessly. The room was silent for a moment, then the senior engineer let out a low whistle. He still got it, he muttered, shaking his head. Musk smirked, then turned to Mark. All right, he said, crossing his arms. You're not just getting a job, Mark. You're getting your life back. Mark blinked, barely processing the words. What? What do you mean? Musk leaned forward, his tone serious. I'm giving you a senior engineering role, full salary, benefits, and more than that, you'll have a place to stay, access to Tesla's mental health program, whatever you need to get back on your feet. Mark's breath hitched. His entire world had shifted in a single moment. He tried to speak, but his throat tightened. Finally, he choked out the only words that made sense. I don't know what to say. Musk smiled. Then don't. Just build the future with us. News of Mark's story spread like wildfire. A homeless man once lost in the shadows, now working at the forefront of innovation. It was the kind of redemption tale the world needed. When Musk tweeted about him, the message was simple but powerful. Never judge a person by their worst moment. Sometimes all they need is a second chance. For Mark, that worn-out Tesla shirt had once been a reminder of what he lost. Now it symbolized something else: hope, resilience, and the power of never giving up. Because sometimes the future doesn't just need technology, it needs belief in people.